Hi, good evening. Good evening, fellow citizens. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of your most favorite, your most thought provoking program, your number one non partisan social program, Social Digest. Welcome. It's been a while, right? Yeah, it's been a while. There is something that folks, that I've been pounding on lately. That whether if you've actually wondered why Africa as a whole, campaign for peace yet beget violence. I don't know if you've been thinking about such thing lately. Why Africa? Why we as Africans campaign for peace yet beget violence? Especially when it comes to election. Have you wondered why that is so? We are the one who campaigns for peace. We spend much time and resources campaigning for peace. And in most cases, we get violence. And countries that hardly or do not campaign for peace at all are mostly peaceful. And yet we spend resources, a whole lot of money, campaigning for peace yet beget violence. Have you wondered, folks? And if you have you wondered why that is so? It's better you listen to this presentation. It is because peace and injustice do not coexist. Peace and injustice do not, folks, do not coexist. Peace and injustice, they do not coexist. They don't. They don't. For clarity and purpose of this particular presentation, let us look at the definition of injustice. Let's look at the definition of injustice. Injustice is defined as the fact of a situation being unfair. Folks, the fact of a situation being unfair and of people not being treated equally. An unfair act or an example of unfair treatment. This happens to be the definition of injustice. The fact of a situation being unfair, people not being treated equitably. An unfair act or an example of an unfair treatment. Folks, this happens to be the definition of injustice. And guess what? Any society that is characterized by injustice never have peace. Any society that is characterized, any country, any group of people that is characterized by injustice never have peace. Because injustice, folks, is poisonous to the soul, not the body. Poisonous to the soul. Therefore, it is the soul that crave for justice, not our mental faculty. It is our soul that crave for justice, not our mental faculty. Justice is what pacifies aggrieved soul for peace to prevail. Justice, folks, is what pacifies aggrieved souls for peace to prevail. Folks, we just read injustice. For some reason, you would think, having the ability to read what injustice is, we now know what justice is. All right? But it is not our mental faculty that crave for it. It is not at all. It is our soul. Folks, it is our soul. You see, two incidents infer the logic of this particular topic. One was as old as thousands of years ago. Genesis 4:10, when Cain slew his brother Abel. And the Lord said unto Cain, what have you done, Cain? What have you done? The blood of your brother is crying for vengeance. In other words, folks, the blood is crying for justice. Blood crying for justice? Folks, blood crying for justice. I guess you should be somehow conscious and let your more mental faculty in order to cry for justice. You can just look at it and say, nah, this is not fair. But blood crying for justice. Folks, the other incident was a personal experience with kids. Personal experience with kids. And those who love kids will also attest to this. I came across some kids playing, and suddenly there was a loud and a painful cry from one of them. You can tell from the way the kid was crying that he was really in pain. All effort to comfort this little boy proved futile. All effort. Whatever we did to comfort, the little boy proved futile. And a woman came by and asked, who did that to him? The rest of the kid pointed at one of them who happens to be a little older than the one crying. And they said, he pushed him. Le pushile. Onuno piano. The woman asked the boy, why did you push him? You are a bad boy. Come here. The woman then pretended as if she was beating the boy. This elderly who pushed the little boy. The woman pretended she was beating the boy and whispered in the boy's ears, pretend as if you are crying. Yes, also. And the elderly did. He pretended as if he was crying. And the woman was like, you are a bad boy. Why did you beat him? Why did you beat him? And pretending he was beating this elderly. And the elderly pretended as if he was crying. Folks, the elderly pretended as if he was crying. Suddenly, this very little boy who was crying profusely stopped crying. Folks, this little boy stopped crying. I was amazed and then asked myself, what is it about justice that even a little boy, folks, a kid who have no idea what justice is, crave for it? What is it about justice? Even a little boy who had no idea of what justice is, crave for it. What is it? folks. And you can attest to it. We always do this. Okay? When a little boy is offended, when a kid is offended at home, okay, maybe being beaten by another boy, punished or whatever it is, okay, and they happens to be crying, and then we pretended as if we are beating the person who offended him or her, they suddenly stop crying, because having seen the other person being beaten, okay, that pacifies them, folks. And it happens in most homes. It happens, folks. These two incidents made me understood that it is not our mental faculty that cries for justice, but our soul. It is our soul that cries for justice. It's of this reason you'll find that there will be a battle, 1,000 years battles, we are still fighting them today. We think those who are dead, gone, and they are dead, gone. Their souls, their blood are still crying for justice. And for some reason, they inspired the next generation, and they kept on fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. Folks, this very incident made me understand that it is not our mental faculty that cries for justice, but our soul. No wonder, folks, no wonder injustice happens to be the most detestable, above all detestable. The Lord God really detests and said in Proverbs 11:1, folks, and said in Proverbs 11:1 that unbalanced weight is an abomination in my sight. Unbalanced weight is an abomination in my sight. You know, when you peruse the Bible, at a certain point in time where God says, when you take a slave, make sure you reward the slave accordingly and blah blah, don't let go a slave. I keep on asking myself, did that mean the Lord God condones slavery? For some reason, that is he condones slavery. But there's no place in the Bible that God will say, cheat on this person or do this. Because you know why? Injustice is the root of all evil. Injustice is the root of all evil. Let me give you a typical example. Let's say you bought this pen from a friend, or a friend have this particular pen, all right? And then you tell a friend, you know what? Let me have this your pen, okay? And then I will sell it, so that when I sell it, we'll share the money, okay? And then the friend gave the pen to you. You sold the pen at, let's say, 100 cedis, and then came back and then gave the friend, let's say, 20 cedis, and he knew you sold the pen 100 cedis, and you gave him 20 cedis. Obviously, he felt cheated, because to him you are not fair. All right. In another scenario, let's say you took the pen from him and you say, Chief, give me this pen, okay, sell this pen to me at 20 cedis. I'll give you 20 cedis. I want to go and sell the pen. You give it to me and I'll give you 20 cedis. You told him you'll give him 20 cedis, and later he heard that you sold the pen at 100 cedis, and he brought back your 20 cedis. Within these two scenarios, which of these two scenarios would you feel cheated? Obviously, the first scenario. The second scenario, he made you aware that he will give you what? 20 cedis. So he was fair to you. So you will not feel cheated and you will not fight him. you definitely not fight him, because he said he will give you 20 cedi and you agreed and you gave the pen to him. As compared to the first scenario when he said, give this pen to me, I'm going to sell it at this price, and then let's share. So let's share, you definitely know, perhaps if not equally. So you fight him on the first scenario. All right? So justice is what actually produces peace. Folks, justice is the root of all peace, and injustice is the root of all evil. And that's why, no wonder, in the Bible, peruse the Bible, you find out that at a certain point in time, the Lord himself ordered people to go and slew others. But there's no way in the Bible's order others to go and cheat. And there are so many scenarios in the Bible, folks, in which the Lord have to slew others just because of what? Cheating. Not being fair. And I'll give you a typical example. Folks, I'll give you a typical example. The story of David in 2 Samuel, folks, in 2 Samuel 11:12. In 2 Samuel, the story of David, in 2 Samuel 11-12, is an exemplary of how the Lord really detests unjust acts. Folks, according to the Bible, David was highly favored by God. And this is someone the Lord took from grass to grace. But, folks, the act of an unfair treatment on David's side made him lose the favor of God. And David never had peace since then. According to the Bible, David was one day on the top of his palace, taking in fresh air, saw a beautiful woman afar, washing down. David inquired of the woman and got to know that she was the wife of one of his soldiers called Uriah. David asked for the woman to be fetched for him, made love to this beautiful woman. David then received a letter from this beautiful woman a month after, telling him that she is pregnant. Folks, telling him that she is pregnant. To conceal his bad deed, David asks for Uriah, who happens to be on the battlefield fighting for the kingdom. Uriah reported, and David asked him, David just told him, Jack, take a break. Take a break. You are fighting too hard. Just take a break, okay? Take a break from the battlefield and go home and have some quality time with your wife. Uriah said to David, my lord, how can I leave my colleagues on a battlefield and go home to my wife and have quality time with her? I am a soldier. My conscience will not even serve me right. David said to Uriah, it's an order. Go home. And then he left Uriah in the palace. The next morning, David spotted Uriah in the palace, which means Uriah didn't go. He's still in the palace. And David said to him, my friend, you are still here. And David said, boss, chief, I can't do this. I can't leave my colleagues on the battlefield and go home and have quality time with my wife. And David said, it's okay. All right, guess what? You take this letter and go back to the battlefield and give the letter to your general, Uriah did. Guess what, folks? Guess what? The letter reads, put this gentleman at the forefront of the battle and ensure that he is killed. This is what actually was written in the letter. It said, put this gentleman at the forefront of the battle and ensure that he is killed. The general did as commanded, and Uriah was killed. David then took Uriah's wife, married her in addition to his wives. You know, when you peruse the Bible, you know, David have wives and he have concubines. Yes? Most of these kings and stuff have concubines. Concubines you may be referred to as a girlfriend and you know, stuff. But the Lord is fine. Okay, because a girlfriend is not anybody's wife. But here in the case, he went and took somebody's wife in addition to his wife. Folks, in addition to his wife. And that is cheating. That's pure cheating. And this is what got the Lord God annoyed. And the Lord God told Prophet Nathan what happened, and told Nathan to go and tell David the following. And this is where it gets interesting, folks. Listen. This is where it really gets interesting. Nathan went to David and said, David, there were two men in your kingdom. One of these men had many lands, and plenty ships. In fact, this man is rich. And the other man had only one land and one ship. Only one pet. One land and one ship. A stranger came to the town and went to this rich man in quest of a land and a ship in order to settle down. But the rich man went and took the poor man's one land and ship for the stranger. And David was asked, what do you think should be done to this rich man? And guess what David said? Who did that? Who did that in my kingdom? Such a person should be cast away among men. Who did that? David said, such a person should be cast away among men. And Prophet Nathan said to him, the man is you. The man is you, David. What have you done? What have you done? You have killed Uriah with a sword and taken a wife. Folks, what have you done? Folks, listen to 2 Samuel 11:12. And this will tell you how furious the Lord was. Listen, 2 Samuel 11:12. It says, what have you done, David? You have killed Uriah with a sword and taken thy wife. Therefore the sword shall not depart from thy house. And somewhere in this, and even the God said, listen, I've given you wives, I've given you everything. If it is one wife you needed, come to me and I'll still give you more. Why do you have to go and take somebody else's wife? And listen to 2 Samuel, how, it describes. It says what? You have killed Uriah with a sword and taken thy wife. Therefore the sword shall never depart from thy house, says the Lord. Behold, I will rise up evil in thy house, and will take thy wives. Listen to this. Will take thy wives before thy own eyes unto thy neighbor. I will give your wives to your neighbor, and they will sleep with your wife in your own sight and in the sight of this son. For ye did this secretly, but I will do this before all Israel and before thy son. Fourth, calamity. When you read this very verse, you can tell how angry the Lord is. Yes, you did this. You went and took somebody's wife. So fine, I will also take your wife and give it to others. And they will sleep with your wife in your sight for everybody to see. Wow. This tells you how pleased the Lord was. Folks, this should tell you how pleased he was. Mad. You've taken somebody's wife. You know, when you listen to this verse, I've listened to narrative on this particular quotation, and most pastors will say, because David committed adultery. No, this has got nothing to do with adultery. This has got all to do with cheating. If you listen to the sentence or the story Prophet Nathan told David, it's pure cheating. You have plenty sheep, plenty land. Why do you have to go and take somebody's one sheep and give it to somebody? When you listen to the story, it is not adultery. Adultery is simply having an affair outside your marital. That is what adultery is. So it doesn't matter whoever you have with. Okay? And in the olden days, the kings have wives and they have concubines. Concubines are girlfriends you may refer to. They've not married them, but they still sleep with them. But there's nowhere in the Bible that you find the Lord being pleased, being angry, because David have slept with concubine. Why did he sleep with somebody else? No. This story purely is an unfair treatment. You have everything, and you went and took somebody's only one in addition to yours, and that was what the Lord God got pleased. And when you read Samuel, 2 Samuel 11:12, it tells it. It says what? You took somebody's one. I will take your wife and give it to others. Calamity. And if you read on, you know what happened. Since then, David never had peace in his own home. Since then, his children have been sleeping with each other. They've been killing. They've been doing all kind of things. Injustice, and peace do not coexist. Do not coexist, folks. Injustice and peace do not coexist, folks. Calamity happens to be the fate of society characterized by injustice. Injustice, calamity. And we have so many examples to attest to across the length and breadth of Africa. So many. Injustice. Folks, the above narrative is likened to the unfair system of governance practiced in Ghana and across Africa, where bounty provisions were made as remunerations and benefits. Folks, bounty provisions were made as remunerations and benefits to group of people called government. To group of people called government in exchange of their services to provide enabling environment for the people, potable water to the needy, proper Medicare to the sick, shelter to the homeless, electricity, and so on and so forth. And the same system, folks, allows them to amass these resources. The same system, folks, allows them to amass these resources to themselves and to their cronies, to the detriment of the people. It is an unjust system of governance. It is an unjust. Therefore, if you wonder or wondered why Ghana and Africa most often campaign for peace, yet beget violence, is because we have unjust system of governance. And injustice and peace do not coexist. They don't. They don't. Don't be deluded, folks. Don't be. We can never have peace and develop meaningfully in Ghana and across Africa with this an unfair system of governance. A system that says the same people who are responsible for the affairs of the country should be the same to approve to themselves, investigate themselves, report to themselves, and prosecute themselves where found liable, can never produce the wanted result. It can never, and it is very unfair. It's unjust, folks. And this is a cause of enmity, political conflict, and corruption across Africa. It's a cause of enmity. You know why we hate ourselves so bad in a small thing? Because this is the cause. Folks, it's a cause of enmity, political conflict, and corruption across Africa. Guess what, folks? Guess what? Listen. We are practicing a governance system that gives preference to a group of people and their associates at the expense of the majority, which is us. This is what we are practicing. It gives preference to a group of people, and this is no different than what we have the king, the royal time, and the olden days. We have the dictatorship and so forth. It is no different. We are practicing a system that gives preference to a group of people and their associate at the expense of the majority, which is us. Listen to this. They receive the highest salary and freely given all necessities that salaries were meant for. This is what it is. They receive the highest salary and freely given all necessities that salaries were meant for, while the majority, which is us, will receive the lowest salary yet meant to pay for all necessities, all basic necessities. When any of them steals billions, folks, they are pardoned and in most cases given a public post. While if any of the majority of us still stands, he or she is arrested and jailed for years. Folks, they violate the laws of the nation with impunity. Of course, they are meant to prosecute themselves. They are meant to investigate themselves. They are meant to report to them also. So they violate the laws of the nation with impunity. But if any of the majority violates the law, he or she is dealt with mercilessly. They borrow billions on behalf of us, the majority, for projects. Misappropriate these funds, and we are meant to pay for these loans through excessive taxes from our meager earnings. This is what it is. They borrow billions. We've given them the autonomy to borrow on our behalf, and they borrow billions. Okay, and then they misappropriate all this money, and we are meant to pay from our meager earnings. They perform woefully in their responsibilities, and due to the inability of the system, okay, to hold them accountable, because they investigate themselves, they report to themselves, they approve to themselves, So there's no accountability. Inability of the system to hold them accountable for their stewardship. They blame us, the majority, that we must change our attitude. They corruptly run down most of the institutions entrusted to them, then place these institutions in the hands of the third party for political expediency in the name of privatization at the expense of the majority of us. They corruptly run down all the institutions because it is their own cronies, it is their own associates that are running this institution, and they run them down. And they are the same people who are supposed to check on them, to prosecute them, so they therefore do not do that. And they run these institutions down. Okay? And therefore puts these institutions in the hands of private people. I always say, if we have to privatize all the institutions entrusted to government, then we must as well privatize the governance seat itself. Because they are there to look, to take care of these institutions. Okay? And government institutions must run hand in hand with private. Folks, government institutions must run hand in hand with private. We cannot put everything in the hands of a private. No. It's like a Coke, folks. If you want to buy a Coke, if for some reason today you are rich and you want to buy Coke, Coca-Cola, you can go to Golden Tulip and buy Coca-Cola, a bottle of Coca-Cola for 20 cedis. Yes, go to Golden Tulip and you buy Coca-Cola, a bottle of Coca-Cola, 120. Not only Golden Tulip, any big place, whatever you may call it. And then you can still go to some store out there and still buy Coca-Cola 1 cedi 50 pesos. This is how a nation to run. So that today when you are down and you needed to buy Coke, you still can buy Coke and drink. When you are rich and you feel like going to throw some money away, then go to where it is expensive. Okay? Can you just imagine if all schools in this country are privatized? Folks, how many Ghanaians will be educated? Just imagine if all hospitals, are privatized. How many Ghanaians will afford medical? The last time I was sick of malaria, I went to a private hospital. Before I left the hospital, I spent to the close of 800 Ghana cedi. This is somebody's whole month's salary. Yeah, perhaps I have the 800 Ghana cedi, so I can go and spend that. What happens if I don't have the money? Did that mean I will not get medical? So you see, government institutions must go hand in hand. They must provide transportation, they must provide medical, they must do this thing effectively. And this is how nations run. So therefore, when people say, privatize it because of their inability to handle them, and they put it in the private hands, you know what happens. You know what happens. Folks, and this is what happened. Okay? They corruptly run all this institution down and put it in what? To give it to a third party for political expediency, and they call it what? Privatization. And this is a system we are running. Such a preferential system of governance is what deepens sectarianism, tribalism in Ghana and across Africa. This is what happened. I am an Adan. Okay? If I want to employ somebody in my company, must I care if the person is Adan? No. But when you have a system that is preferential, that is why you find some institution, maybe Ashantis will be hiring all the Ashantis, Evers will be hiring all Evers, because they know that there's no opportunity out there for them, so they must take their own. But if they know that the system is not liberal, the system is not fair, you are not being hired based on tribalism, based on nepotism, whatever it is, but based on what? Your skills and your expertise, everybody gets jobs to do. But when you run the preferentials, this is what happened. So such a system is what gives rise, okay, to sectarianism and tribalism in Ghana and across Africa. Because you see, when citizens are aggrieved by their system of governance, when they are aggrieved by their system of governance, they tend to find solace in groups. This is what happened. It happened in our association. When they are aggrieved by the system that's supposed to protect them, provide for them, they now what? Tend to find solace in what? Groupings. And this is what gives rise to what? Sectarianism, tribalism, extreme partisanship that characterize Ghana and across Africa. I was watching an interview, and this so-called political activist, was asked. In fact, he was a professor, was asked. It's as if Ghana and Africa or across Africa, we kind of love, we are so much partisan. Why is that so? And he said, it's because we love politics. We love politics. And I said, who love politics? Who love politics? Okay? The reason why you find that people are rushing into politics is because it's a preferential system of governance. In fact, you have to belong to them in order to have something. If you don't, you will not. That is why you find people rushing, not because they love politics. In other jurisdictions, people go and vote and let go. They now go to their respective jobs and go and work. That's all. Do you understand that? But here, it is politics. It is not your job. That is why you find people rushing into that, into politics. Everybody rushing into it, want to be a politician. It is because it's preferential. If you don't join them, you can. So you find all the youth joining, everybody joining. So this happens to be the reason why. Okay? When citizens of a country are aggrieved by the system that's supposed to provide and protect for them, they tend to find solace in group. Hence the deepening in sectarianism, tribalism, extreme partisanship that characterize Ghana and across Africa. And guess what? A house that is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Mark 3, folks. Mark 3:25. A house that is divided against itself, that house, no. Therefore, if you wonder why Africa and Ghana campaign for peace, yes, beget violence, it is because injustice and peace do not coexist. Injustice and peace do not coexist. Folks, injustice and peace do not coexist. To have a fair system of governance, we must call for bodies that are mandated to check on the executive arms of government to be independent and have all the powers to act appropriately, such as Parliament, Shiraj, Auditor General, the prosecution department, okay, as we are dallying with it as it is now. Even the police system, we keep on criticizing the police. Do you know the police are not independent? They are directly under the control of the executive. Okay, the constitution does not guarantee the independency of the police, so they are under the control of the executive. The president appoints the IGP, the head of the police, and the IGP tenure ends with the president. The president has the right to change the IGP at any point in time. So what do you expect? And when the IGP is under the control of the executive, everybody under the IGP are under the control of the executive. That is why the police themselves find it difficult to deal with the people at the top. They find it difficult. As soon as they intend to arrest somebody, they say they call from above. And then they let go. And while they fail to prosecute those who are running the affairs of this country, it paves way for others, for everybody to corrupt. It paves way for everybody to corrupt. So this is what happened. So let's call for these bodies to be independent, and the independence is such that even if the president appoints, the president shouldn't have the power to take the person off. The tenure of the person does not tie with the presidency, and the president can only be impeached. The person can only be impeached by other bodies. And it's not the executive that will look at the other bodies as is done in other sectors. This is what we should do. This is what we should cry for. Folks, this is what we should do. I know some will say, Shirad, Auditor General, according to the Constitution, are independent. Nope, because Shirad and Auditor General reports to Parliament. So long as we have Parliament under the control of the executive, definitely the Shirad and Auditor General are also under the control of the executive. Okay, they report to Parliament in the line of duty. If you report to me, it is my duty. It is the onus lies on me to ensure that you do your job well. All right? And Parliament uphold its mandate by majority. And as it is now, automatically per the practice, Parliament is hijacked. Folks, it's hijacked by the majority per the practice. Folks, to enable Parliament to address what? The issues raised in the report submitted to Parliament by these two bodies, Auditor General and this thing. So Parliament must go independent. And I know we are smart people out there. They are smart people. We can do it. Folks, we can do it. Parliament must go independent. Peace campaign. Folks, peace campaigns are not the solution to peace. They are just to delay calamities characterized by an unfair or preferential system of governance in a nation. They are not. They are just to delay the calamities. Therefore, I ask, for how long? For how long? The panacea for peace in our country, folks, the panacea for Ghana's predicament, poverty, sectarianism, political violence, mediocrity, and corruption is a just system of governance. This is it. Let's have a just system of governance. Folks, we all talk of mediocrity. Okay? If you live in a country that it is not your ability, as in your profession, that will give you some earnings, but yet it's a political party, what do you think? Do you think people will think to produce? No, people will not think and produce. As in other jurisdictions, the only way you can make money is to think and be master of what you do. Because that's the only way you can be rich. But here, be master of what you do, Jack. Up and down. And somebody will just move into politics within just 2 months. 2 months. And will amass whatever it is, because there's looting, there's plundering in there. And this is what happened. So now nobody cares about thinking, sleepless night and think and be creative. Nobody thinks about it anymore. This is why mediocrity happens to be in our system. So the panacea of all this, okay, is a just system of governance, a fair and a reasonable system of governance, and it is a system where bodies like Parliament, prosecution department, the police, and other bodies that are mandated to check the executive arms of government are not directly under their control. Are not directly under the control or the influence of the executive. Peace and injustice do not coexist. Folks, let's campaign for a just system, a fair system of governance. And this happens to be the panacea for our predicament. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for listening.